Kind of talk about the behind the scenes of starting and sustaining our podcast, which has been a story or almost 3 years in the making now, over 2.5 years in the making. I made some bullet points here of just a rundown of the history of what we've done, and I'll kind of comment on some of the behind the scenes aspects of it, just in case someone is interested in starting a podcast. We'll kind of talk about how we did it. So our good friend Eric and Tommy and myself worked together at one point in time, and we wanted to start a podcast. Eric actually wanted to start a podcast, and I was like,
Yeah.
we're not gonna start a fucking podcast. Like, we came up with a lot of ideas. I have the different ideas for some of our titles here that we had, and if I didn't list any that you had, Tommy, shout them out. But I had Sounds Our Mouths Make, Eric and the Boys, Pictures, Pasta, and Poetry, the podcast, Brain Thoughts and Mouth Noises, Three Useless Organisms Talk About Life, and The Devil's Dandruff, and then Three Guys Without the Wise, which is what ended up becoming our first podcast. Did you have any other titles that you thought of, Tommy?
Honestly, I think when you said three useless organisms, I was like, that's it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I may have had a few stupid ones, but like honestly, nothing that I could think of off the top of my head. And then Eric had the three guys without the wise thing, which nice play on words of three wise guys.
So I think after we had some ideas, we would always talk about our ideas. We ordered some microphones. If
Yeah.
anybody who listens is actually pleased with our audio quality, it's called on Amazon. It's a USB microphone kit, 192 KHZ slash 24-bit Mayano, spelled MAONO,
Mayan.
AUAO4TC PC
Mayan.
condenser podcast streaming cardioid mic, $65 on Amazon. So, and it came with a nice case, nice traveling case. We all three of us use the same mic. Tommy and I are still using them right now.
Ciao.
And I dig it. I mean, for $65, this is giving us pretty darn good quality, in my
Oh
opinion.
yeah. Yeah, no.
Considering this isn't our full-time job and we don't really care. I
Yeah.
think it's pretty
We're
good.
just vibing. Yeah, he had a soap bar specifically for his butthole.
Yeah, that's nice. Hope Chris
Yeah.
Emmerich's doing well.
Yeah, I hope his butthole's doing well as well.
So yeah, so when we recorded episode 1, and this is a tip for anyone who wants to podcast, we found out that you can't record a podcast with 3 people on 3 microphones without a special piece of equipment that gets rid of the echo
Yes.
from the other microphones. So basically 3 people with 3 microphones separately being recorded in one room causes a lot of problems.
Yeah.
There's a special piece of equipment that you should have that we didn't have. So we ended up having to go to 3 separate rooms and do a video call to record the first episode, even though we were all together in person.
There's been times where like my roommates have been in the living room, like, watching the TV kind of loud or something. And like I'm afraid the mic will pick up, so I just lock myself in my closet and just,
Good acoustics in there though. All those clothes,
yeah, right.
they soak up the bad sound waves. But
Exactly. So, I should record in there more often.
yeah, and at one point along the journey, I started editing a couple episodes, and then when Eric actually had to leave the podcast for personal reasons, and we miss him dearly, I might add.
Yeah.
We decided to use that opportunity to do kind of a retheme. Obviously, Three Guys Without the Wise wasn't a title that was applicable anymore because it was me and Tommy, unless you count Tommy's nose as another human being, which you could by
Yeah.
some standards.
Yeah. Because I'm half Jewish.
Yeah, it's large. That's the
Yeah.
joke. It's a large nose.
Yeah.
So we decided to use the opportunity to kind of
Kanye
switch things
West
up.
hates me.
George Bush doesn't care about black people.
Anyway.
Um, so we switched it up. We decided to go to our Three Useless Organisms Talk About Life title. We switched it up to Two Useless Organisms, put it to a 30-minute episode length. So when we switched to 30, we also ended up switching to Zoom audio at that point,
Yeah.
which was a blessing as the editor, because when you record on Zoom, and here's another tip for potential podcasters, you record on Zoom, you can still use whatever microphone you want. You just have to make sure you have that microphone selected in your Zoom call. And then once you end the meeting, it actually saves the video file. It saves a master audio file, and it saves individual audio files for each person speaking. And that comes in handy when editing. So say Tommy starts talking over me like a fucking moron, I can go into his
I do that a lot.
yeah, and go into your individual audio file and just completely erase everything you said without messing up my audio file. So and there's a lot of people, that say you shouldn't use Zoom audio to record. If you're not going to be a full-time content creator, just use the Zoom audio. Do not work like unless you're really picky about how crystal clear, perfect your audio is going to be. Yeah, just use the Zoom audio. We're a bunch of dumbasses just talking about bullshit every couple
Yeah.
weeks, so we don't care.
Yeah.
um, so I will say one of the unique things about our show is that we really have no theme. We're what you'd consider a topical podcast, which means every episode is something new that doesn't have to be listened to in order or in relation to other episodes. So that was a challenge for us. But there are a handful of podcasts that I listen to that are like that. But it's a lot harder to get a target audience in that regard. Having a social media presence is also difficult given that because you don't really know how to cater your social media posts to specific demographics when you have no specific demographics to cater to. I will say another benefit to the 30-minute time frame was that we were able to start another podcast, which we started in October of last year. Please remain seated. Check it out for all your theme park content. And recording 2 roughly 30-minute episodes in one night is a lot, it's easier when they're 30 minutes instead of recording for an hour. In terms of kind of a behind the scenes of having a podcast, I'll leave the listeners with one kind of promising statistic about podcasts. Most podcasts don't make it past 7 episodes. So if you do have an idea for a show that you want to make, just stick through it, put 7 episodes out, and you're already better than most people. You're already more successful than most people. You've made it farther. So keep going with it. Don't get I would say, what's the word, not disappointed, but yeah, I guess discouraged. Don't get discouraged when you put out 7 or 10 episodes or something and you don't have a lot of downloads. You got to stick with it. You got to keep going. People will slowly but surely catch on.